So how about those Montreal Canadiens? We all know where everybody finished in the NHL North. The Habs come back down 3-1 to beat the Maple Leafs in 7 games to start off with. Then they go ahead and sweep the Jets. The odds of them doing that, I kind of wish I had a little money down in the series. What do you make of the Habs winning the NHL North?
Well, I think it just underscores how little the regular season means. You have to play well enough to get into the playoffs. But if your style of game is translatable to playoff, type hockey, you don't have to change the way you play. And that's the way Montreal played when they were playing well in the regular season. And they had, large parts in the season when they couldn't score a goal. And it didn't matter how well they checked, they lost games. And Price got hurt and then they lost games. It's not the first time, the LA Kings won the Stanley Cup, I think is the 8th seed 7-8 years ago. So it can happen once you get, obviously St. Louis barely got into the playoffs and won the Stanley Cup a couple of years ago too. A formula that works, I would say. A very democratic 4-line hockey team that Dom Ducharme sends over the boards. They don't rely on one line, one player. And what they do have is a very good top 4 defense, big, and a really good goalie. And, so they have the defensive parts covered, along with certainly one of the better defensive forwards in the NHL in Deneau to check the other team's good players. And that's a recipe for success.
Talking about teams coming from a lower seed, here in Edmonton, those of a certain age will remember the '06 Cup run. The Oilers had finished 8th in the Western Conference that year. They upset the Detroit Red Wings in the first round and then went all the way to the Stanley Cup final, losing in 7 games that year. But look across history. How often do we see 2 top seeds, like the 2 number 1 seeds from each conference, battling each other in the Cup final? Not often. So often that all a team needs to do is just get in, like you said. We can go on and on and on talking about what happened in the past. But, we talked about this recently before the playoffs began with the Jets. They were on a losing skid just before the end of the season. They recovered, won a couple games, and then on into the playoffs they went, and beat the Oilers in the first round, sweeping them. So it's the momentum and the timing sometimes.
Well, what happened in the Winnipeg Edmonton series was their goaltender Hellebuck had about a .950 save percentage. Mike Smith played very well. He was excellent, and they won 3 overtime games. I thought the Oilers actually took the first step to losing the series when they didn't play very well in the first game. At home, lost the first game, and then you're skating uphill trying to catch up. And the same thing happened in Chicago the year before. Second series, Hellebuck wasn't as good until the last game. Save percentage under 9. And the depth that Winnipeg showed in the first round with their second and third line players, Stastny and Ehlers and Lowry and Appleton and such, didn't pick up the slack when Scheifele got hurt. I think that's an indictment of the Winnipeg Jets. We talked all year about how deep they were at the forward. Scheifele gets hurt, and his 2 first-line mates, Connor and Wheeler, did nothing. Which shows that obviously they really need Scheifele to be productive. Stastny was hurt. Dubois, they thought, could pick up the slack after the trade for Laine. He did nothing. I don't think he scored a goal in 24, 25 games in a row. He was a non-factor in almost every playoff game. So he didn't pick up the slack. And, and the defenseman, I think the defense was small and let Montreal get to the net a lot for, to score goals close to the net. Unlike Montreal's defense with Weber and Edmondson and Sherratt and Petrie, who they make it a lot tougher to get to the net, and Winnipeg couldn't get to the net. And the teams that win Stanley Cups often have big defense. Certainly St. Louis when they won the Cup a couple of years ago, with Pietrangelo and Bouwmeester and Edmondson. they made it very difficult for you to get to the net, and the best teams have that. Tampa's got that with Hedman and McDonough and Sergachev and Chernak, big defensemen, and now they got Savard in the trade. So it's really difficult to get to the net if you're a forward. Montreal's got the big defense. They got small forwards that can get to the net and are willing to get to the net. And what they do have is Tyler Toffoli, who scores goals. Unrestricted free agent signing in a depressed market going into this season. 4 years, $4.25 million a year. That's a great bargain. And I would suspect there should be some other unrestricted free agents out there thinking, if that's all Tyler Toffoli got, why should I try to hit a home run? He's an awfully good player who scores big goals with 2 Stanley Cup rings, and he got $4.25 million a year, and he scores big goals.
You bring up Toffoli, and for each team or for any team in the playoffs, in order to move on and be successful, you need production from players who aren't just your top line forwards. Montreal's forward makeup certainly is different than Toronto's or Edmonton's or certainly Winnipeg's. So what the winning formula is in the North, well, we saw what it is. Now they're playing out of division, a team they haven't played all year. Certainly the Golden Knights will be a different challenge. They would have been for any of the Canadian teams.
True. Not that Montreal's going to throw it back. It's not like a fish you get up on the dock and say, "Oh, that's not big enough. We're throwing that one back." We're in the Final Four, and the last time a Canadian team won was the Montreal Canadiens in 1993. They're going in as an underdog, Montreal, but they've been in the underdog in every series, so why should it change? As long as they've got Carey Price in goal, who's played really well, I think they figure they got a puncher's chance, and we'll see.
Do you see any comparison? I brought up the '06 Oilers between that team and this year's Canadiens. The Habs have Carey Price in net, and Dwayne Rollison. Well, for the Oilers, that was the shining moment in his career, was leading the Oilers to the Cup final. I think about the defensive makeup of the '06 Oilers. With Chris Pronger as the catalyst on the blue line, and the makeup of the defense. A veteran, gritty squad. It was different. It was different hockey back then. Maybe I'm reaching here.
Well, obviously Montreal does not have Chris Pronger on their defense. Shea Weber would be a Chris Pronger type in his prime, but he's not in his prime anymore. But he's still a pretty good player. There's some similarities. I think what Montreal's got going for them is a work ethic, and the ability to play the same game from the minute the game starts till the end of the game. They don't change the way they play. It's not like, they suddenly try to become the Colorado Avalanche. They're not. So they play that. This is the style they play, and it's much kind of the same as, say, the New York Islanders. This is the style we play. Now beat us. And the Islanders are a bigger team than Montreal, but Montreal's formula is so far been very good, and it helps that they're always leading in the hockey games. They're not playing catch-up, and they can play that style for 60 minutes if they're always up 1-0 or 2-0. And Winnipeg played from behind the whole series.